Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here today at the Old State House. My name is Rebecca Tabor-Conover. I'm the head of programs here at Connecticut's Old State House, and we're really happy to have you joining us today. I want to first thank our funders, Connecticut Humanities, for funding our Lunchtime program series and being supportive of that effort. And today's program is a recognition of the recently passed Veterans Day. And so I'm looking forward to hearing excerpts from the new play, Dear Eva. Our program today is called Letters from the Front. And as we get started, I'd like to just invite you to hold your questions until the end of our program, when our two authors will be standing back up to take your questions. And I'd like to ask, are there any veterans in the crowd today? Anyone who served? Please stand up so we can give you a round of applause and thanks for your service to our country. Thank you for being here today. And I would invite you to join us for our further programs, and you can check that out on our Old State House website. It's my pleasure to introduce Paul Janich, who has been with us before here at the Old State House. He is a professor emeritus from Quinnipiac University, where he taught journalism. He was a top editor of 3 newspapers after serving as a reporter in Chicago, Washington, and other cities, along with being a newspaper consultant in Russia. He's a graduate of Georgetown and Columbia Universities. The other author of Dear Eva is Catherine Ladinay, who is a graduate of Mills College and Harvard University. Catherine describes herself as a theater buff, and she's active in historical preservation and wildlife preservation. She works as a compliance consultant in the securities industry and is from Greenwich, Connecticut. Please join me in welcoming Catherine and Paul.
Eva Lee, my mother, died on Mother's Day 2001 in a nursing home mere miles from the farmhouse in which she was born. My mother was Southern to the core, or as she would say, I am a South Carolinian. Southerners tell stories and Southerners write. And my mother hailed from a long line of Scotch-Irish. The Scots in their blood made them savers. Mother threw nothing away. Just after her death, I found some old letters tucked away here and there in the old farmhouse. I shipped them to my home. Back in Connecticut, I took a letter from the box and read it to myself. I cried. Another letter made me laugh. Memorial Weekend 2004, I was volunteering at the USO. I took some of the letters for the servicemen and women to read. Their reaction was the same as mine, so why not turn them into a play? The theater, to me, is a narcotic, and I am a junkie. A few weeks later, I met Paul, whom I knew from his commentaries on WNPR. I introduced myself to him as an admirer of his commentaries, and I said I want to do a play based on real letters from World War II. What do you think? And I invited Paul to my home to see for himself.
I was impressed, and I thought some of them could be made into a play. Catherine and I became collaborators. The contents of the letters were keyboarded into a computer database so we could work with them without damaging the originals. We selected the best letters, organized them into storylines, and reduced them to their essentials. But we made nothing up. Eva Lee Brown is the narrator in the play. She introduces the letter writers and provides any necessary background.
Though we made nothing up, I will confess that I took poetic license as I channeled my inner Eva. But Eva will say a Southerner is at liberty to embellish. Dear Eva starts with a letter, the first letter that I found, the letter that brought tears to my eyes. January the 27th, 1944, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Please forgive this mimeographed letter, but I have secured the home addresses of all the officers of the 853rd Engineers Aviation Battalion. And I'm writing each of their families, hoping to secure some information about their accident in the Mediterranean. On December the 28th, I received a letter from the War Department stating that my husband, Fred H. Leach, had been missing in action since November the 26th in the North Africa area. I am eagerly seeking some information pertaining to this tragedy, and if you can help me, my deepest appreciation will be offered. I hope from the bottom of my heart that your news was more pleasant than ours. Sincerely, Mrs. Fred H. Leach. What accident? It would be many years before I knew the answer to that question.
Eva, her papa, her brother Wade, and her uncle Adger are mystified. Eva's younger brother Bill is in the 853rd Aviation Engineers Battalion, but they know he is safe. They are getting letters from him. What was the accident in the Mediterranean? What happened to the 853rd? We don't learn the full story until the end of the play.
Hope springs eternal. Hitch your wagon to a star. To thine own self be true. Mother always had a little ditty to share with friends and family. Where did these pearls of wisdom come from? Aunt Evie. My mother was named for Aunt Evie, who raised Eva. My grandmother Vanessa died in childbirth when her little Eva was only 5 years old. So Eva starts her story by putting first things first. Never put the cart before the horse, Aunt Evie always said. Dear Eva begins in 1939, war in Europe, but it's over there. Then Eva receives a letter from cousin Clifton Barr. The Barrs and the Browns are cut from the same bolt of cloth. That Carolina red clay just stays in the blood. But the Barrs moved to Colorado. Cousin Clifton, our first Western cousin, is in the Army and writes to Eva from Fort Sam Houston in Texas. The war isn't so far away now.
Dear Eva Lee, I guess I might almost call myself a stranger, so I will try and introduce myself. First, I guess I am the black sheep of the Barr family. Mom wanted me to take a business college course, and I didn't. She didn't want me to take military, and I did. She doesn't want me to fly. She didn't want me to join the Army, and I did. I like it and hope I get a permanent commission at the end of the year. I am not married yet, and that is one thing that pleases Mom. I am in the 12th Field Artillery. The howitzer that we have is an old one for training purposes only. The battery does have some good-looking men. 2 of the 5 lieutenants may make me look like a mud fence after a week of rain. Very good looking, in other words. Now for the Army. As you probably know, an Army man is paid good, but isn't a true Army man unless he is broke. The big handicap comes in having to keep our social obligations. We have to call on all officers of our regiment, although we stay only 10 or 15 minutes. Between buying uniforms and parties, we are broke most of the time. However, we are happy. We never have to worry about eating or doctor's bills. We have a swell house with lights and heat furnished. Whoops, I have run out of paper, so I better stop. Your loving cousin, Clifford.
Let me tell you all about my Uncle Bill, Mother's beloved younger brother. Uncle Bill's a main character in Dear Eva. Uncle Bill was tall and scrawny. The Great Depression had been hard on the Brown family. Uncle Bill leaves the family farm and moves north. Many Southerners left for greener pastures. He could make more money in construction. There was a lot of building going on in 1940, and Uncle Bill regularly sent money home. You see, the family had those debts, and that damn lawyer in Greenville never let them forget. The Senate passed the conscription bill, age limits 21 to 44, and Uncle Bill,
Dear sis, it looks as though you're going to have a soldier boy for a brother before long if things keep going as they are. The war is looking very bad for us now. It may not be long before the U.S. gets into the war. I just hope that I can get a job with the government before it all happens so that I won't have to go and fight. Eva, I don't want to fight. Your brother Bill.
By 1941, the war over there didn't seem so far away. Cousin Clifton transferred to Louisiana, where he found the place lousy with soldiers, and then to the Greenville Army Air Base. Greenville, like so many towns and cities, underwent a transformation. Cousin Clifton was now in the 111th Observation Squadron, and he had to train to observe. How about a little practice over the Brown family farm?
Dear Eva Lee, I gave your house a buzz about a week ago, but failed to get anyone out. I should say that I got the pilot to fly over and give the place a buzz. It is quite easy to pick out the house. Several folks from the store across the street came out and looked up. Until I see you or write again, be good. Not too good, not too bad. Your loving cousin, Clifton.
Grandpa Brown bought a radio, Sears Silver Tone with Stratobeam reception, in 1940. That's when the Browns got electricity. After Sunday dinner, that's lunch in the South, Eva, Grandpa Brown, and Uncle Andrew would listen to their favorite programs. On December the 7th, 1941, they are listening to the Arthur Smith Radio Hour when...
We interrupt this program to bring you a special news bulletin. The Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor, Hawaii by air. President Roosevelt has just announced.
America is at war. Rationing begins in 1942. The Browns, like all Americans, had to count their points. Meat cost too many points for a poor farm family, but Eva had those damn chickens. She would wring their necks and fix fried chicken. She hated chicken and wouldn't eat chicken, not to her dying days. Everyone sacrificed in those years. Uncle Bill was drafted into the Army. Grandpa Brown puts a sign in the front parlor window, "May God bless our boy. We are praying for him." Uncle Bill left South Carolina again, this time for boot camp at Camp Wheeler, Georgia.
Dear folks, I am okay and feeling fine. We have finished our basic training now. We are going to have a week review, and our class will be ready to ship out. To where, no one will know. You will have to wait a week or more to hear from me again. We are going to be out in the field for 5 days, sleeping and eating in the open all that time. If it does not rain for those 5 days, I hope to have a good time. The gas shortages hit the Army camps also. The officers and men who have cars are getting anywhere from 3 to 8 gallons of gas per week. You can see how it is here. Our menu calls for iced tea for lunch and supper. We are getting iced water. All the other food seems to be plentiful at present, but there are some things that have been cut short. Write soon, your son and brother Bill.
Uncle Bill gets married. He met Miss May Teresa Titherington of Philadelphia in Washington, D.C. I still remember Aunt May, a gentle soul and frail. She suffered from tuberculosis. May and Bill love each other very much. Eva thinks that getting a letter from May is just like getting one from Bill. And Eva used to say, when the stars are aligned, "Dear Eva, I am still in bed but feeling much better. The doctor said I should stay here until the 27th, and then he would see about letting me up. I had done too much, overtaxed my strength, so must take this rest. May."
Bill writes to Eva about May's poor health. Dear Eva, the doctor said that May should be in the hospital within the next 24 hours, and that he would like for her to go to Walter Reed in Washington because she's a soldier's wife. She almost has a case of pneumonia. Don't worry about May, as she is getting along fine and is getting the best of care. Write soon, as ever, Bill.
Now let me introduce y'all to my daddy, Harry. Harry, though a son of Los Angeles, is a 10th generation Louisiana Creole. My wonderful father, the oldest son, and his 4 brothers all served in the war. Uncle Arnold enlisted in the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps, during the Great Depression. A lot of young men did. They got 3 meals a day, medical care, and new socks. I will tell you all more about Harry later, but let me say a bit about Uncle Arnold. Uncle Arnold was scheduled to get out of the CCC January 1942, then December the 7th, 1941. Well, you all know what happened. No discharged. And my daddy, this is the Army, Mr. Jones.
Arnold writes to Harry, my dear drafted brother. So you joined the ranks of the draggers. That's what we call them. So your feet ache. What did you expect, to ride around in a truck? When I was a rookie in the Army, I never wrote to Mother telling her my feet hurt. You haven't seen anything yet until you march 10 miles a day in the heat and your feet begin to sweat and blister. Then you know you've had a little walk for yourself. In regards to the money you asked for, Mother, I never asked for it when I was making $21 a month. In fact, I send a little home now and then. There is no reason why you can't get along on it. And my advice to you is you better start learning right now to get along on practically nothing. How do you like the Army otherwise? How do you like the needles they stick in your arm? How many have you taken? Do you live in tents or barracks? Do they let you go to town yet? Your kid brother, Arnold Ladnier.
1943, more rationing. More of Eva's kith and kin get drafted, and Uncle Bill graduates from Officer Candidate School and joins the newly formed 853rd Engineers Aviation Battalion. On January the 9th, Uncle Bill, fresh from OCS, reports for duty in Dyersburg, Tennessee. 10 days later, the enlisted men from Bradley Field, Connecticut, join my uncle in that little town. Their assignment, create a battle-ready battalion that would build the air bases and runways for the war. Uncle Bill's carpentry skills would come in handy. In October, Uncle Bill and his comrades board a Liberty ship. Port of embarkation, Camp Patrick, Newport News, Virginia. Destination, unknown. But the 853rd knew they were going a long way from home. The wives, sweethearts, and mothers of the 853rd stood in silence as the ship left the shores of Virginia. Aunt May was not one of them. She is ill, but she never complains. Like her sisters on the home front, Aunt May needs news from her man. Uncle Bill's letters are her medicine. Dear Eva, I am sitting on top of the world now. Received a V-mail from Bill yesterday. I'll tell you what he said, barring all the mush. I know you're not interested in that as I am. This is what Bill wrote.
It has been so long since I have written, and so much has happened. We are in North Africa. I am in the best of health. I have not received any mail since I have left the States and have not been able to send any out as yet. We are fixing to have a rifle inspection, so I had better hurry with this note. I sure don't like the water here. It tastes like sulfur.
That is all he wrote, except for all the sweet stuff I like so much to hear. I'm trying to keep myself content with this letter and not getting my hopes up for another one real soon. One better come pretty quick, though, because I've read and reread this one so much that it will soon be falling to pieces. Lots of love, May.
A few days later, Eva, her father, and her brother get their first letter from Bill, who's over there. Dear folks, it has been quite a long time since I have written to you. I am somewhere in North Africa, and it is a very beautiful country. There is a range of mountains here that reminds me of the Blue Ridge, and it sure makes me homesick. I am sending this money order for $50 to Dad for all of your Christmas presents. Don't worry about me. I can take care of myself. Keep writing. As ever, Bill.
So many soldiers in Greenville from all over the country. There were so many soldiers in Greenville that the Greenville Army Air Base issued an order. No kissing on the streets of Greenville. Daisies don't tell, but the MPs will. What's a girl to do? Eva just has to make the soldier boys feel at home. Y'all come.
Here are some letters from the soldier boys. Dear Eva, I sure had a swell time with you, and I enjoyed dancing with you. I thought maybe that I treated you too rough, and you just thought I was a mean soldier. I sure hope that I see you again. I wasn't drunk Saturday night. I was just feeling good. Sincerely yours, Art. From Paris Island, South Carolina. Dear friend, you might think it's pretty silly to write to you because I don't know you and you don't know me. So that makes us even. I'm 20 years old, 5 feet 8 inches, black curly hair, brown eyes, and I'm Italian. Will you please tell me what you look like and send me a picture of yourself? And please tell me if I'm allowed to write to you. Do you go to high school? Do you work? Do you have a boyfriend in the armed forces? I've been in the Marines since May 22nd. I'm from Johnstown, PA. Best regards, Charlie. From Camp Davis, North Carolina. Hello, Eva Lee. I just got out of the guardhouse yesterday. That's right, honey. The company commander released me, giving me one more chance. About that 3-day pass, Eva, I can't get it. I first have to soldier, if you know what I mean. I will make it up to you, Eva, I promise. Eva, it took me up until now to realize how much I miss you. You see, Eva, you were the only one besides my dad to write to me. That is why I am going to make it up to you when I see you. Eva, whoever is going to marry you will be the luckiest guy in the world, and I hope I be it. Lots of love, Jack. P.S. Here's a kiss for you, honey.
Oh, that Jack.
Jack writes on the envelope, this is from a soldier to his girl. Don't take your time, mailman. Rush it.
Now I'll tell you more about my daddy, Harry. Harry, like his father, worked for the Southern Pacific Railroad. One day while visiting the kinfolks in South Carolina, Aunt Bee, Eva's youngest sister, asked me, Kathy, do you know how your mother met your father? Why, no, Aunt Bee, I surely don't. Well, one day Eva, that's Southern for Eva, was making a delivery of Fay Woods Cosmetics to Bessie up on the Mill Hill. Bessie had ordered regular from Eva. This soldier Harry was paying Bessie a visit. And wouldn't you know it, but Bessie's husband walked in the front door, real unexpected. So Bessie said Harry was with Eva. What could she do? Bless her heart. Just nodded and left with Harry. Aunt Bee's story only confirmed what I already knew. Everyone liked Harry. Harry, I enjoyed being with you Wednesday night and wish we didn't have to leave so soon. How's the Army? Do you think you'll be discharged because of your asthma? In a way, I hope not, for then you'll be leaving and going back to California, and I'll miss you lots. Guess you are pretty anxious to get home, though. Are you still planning on coming over to Easley tomorrow? I hope so. I will go to King's Cafe about 7 p.m. to meet you. If you happen to have a couple of friends who want to come over for the dance, bring them along. I have a couple girlfriends you met, but you haven't met Lorna. She sure is cute. 21, and she likes to date cute soldiers. The high school band is playing, and I can hear the drums as I sit here writing. There's going to be a football game tonight. I like football games and the band. Don't you? Well, so long until tomorrow, Harry. We'll be looking for you. Sincerely, Eva. Harry did get that discharge. His asthma was just so bad, and he went back to Los Angeles and the Southern Pacific Railroad. Grandma Armentine had one son at home. Uncle Arnold, Uncle Russell, Uncle Herbie, Uncle Don were over there. And Uncle Bill?
Early in 1944, Bill writes to Eva to tell her where he has ended up. Dear Sis, I am somewhere in India. You will have to guess exactly where I am, and by that time, I will be somewhere else. As you know, May is doing really fine. She is up most of the time now. With all my love, Bill.
India? So far from South Carolina. Eva went to the library and checked out the 1942 War Atlas, and she and Grandpa Brown got a geography lesson. That was Grandpa Brown's only trip out of South Carolina.
Dear folks, just a few lines this morning to let you know that I am still alive and kicking. Eva, I don't want you to send me any more toilet articles, as I have about a 3-year supply on hand right now. I have more gum than I know what to do with. Always your brother and son, Bill.
Uncle Bill wanted chocolate, a good box of candy, about 1 box a week if it can be arranged. Please, Eva. Back on the home front, more of Eva's kith and kin got drafted and shipped out to places they never heard of. Grandpa Brown and Eva learned many new names: New Guinea, Iwo Jima, Monte Cassino. James Bryant was a neighbor from down the road.
James Bryant writes, somewhere in Italy on the Angio beachhead.
He means Anzio. There were not many Italians in the Piedmont in 1944.
Dear Eva, I thought while I was not doing anything, I would write you a few lines to let you hear from me. Well, at last I am in combat. I am in Italy. I guess you all back home are hearing a lot about us now. Well, I am in there doing all I can to get this over so we can all come back to our homes and all our friends we left back there. I think all of you a lot. Just wish I could be back there. I think this will be over soon and we can come back. Boy, we sure will have a lot to tell, Eva. Write me something. It really does get lonesome and blue when you don't get any mail. Tell everybody around there I said hello, and I sure would like to be there with them. Well, I better close, so see you real soon. Lots of love, James Bryant.
A few years ago, Aunt Bee told me that James was seriously injured and wounded at Anzio, but he came home.
Bill keeps writing to his family from India. Dear folks, boy, oh boy, it sure is hot here. If I keep on perspiring as I am, I will melt down to nothing and blow away. I sure hope that it is dry enough now to plant the crops. I was sure sorry to hear about the tornadoes that you have been having. Keep writing, as ever, Bill.
President Roosevelt elected for an unprecedented 4th term. Aunt Evie always said, don't change horses in midstream. Uncle Bill wrote to Eva that President Roosevelt was the best man for the job and he would stick with this horse.
Dear folks, just a few lines to let you know I am still alive and kicking. A person does not know how to appreciate what he has until he has had to go off and leave it. I could not complain about anything anymore. It is just about Thanksgiving Day again, and we sure have plenty to be thankful for. I don't think I will ever forget Thanksgiving Day last year and the day after.
Eva always worried about her little brother. I have her diary, St. Patrick's Day, 1942. I have been disappointed, so I haven't heard from Bill. I wrote, I wore my green suit and hope it is lucky. Eva wore a lot of green in those years for Uncle Bill and his comrades.
Bill continues, I sure have some memories. I think we will have a celebration, and I think that I will get drunk for once in my life. Keep writing. I need the letters. Always, Bill.
A bit more about Harry. Eva wasn't the only one with sweethearts all over the country. Daddy had girlfriends everywhere. My father, I have more letters from my father than I have from my daddy. One day I asked Aunt Bee, Aunt Bee, why did Mother save those letters from Daddy's girlfriends? I mean, really? Kathy, that make no difference to Eva. She don't care. I love these brassy broads. You want to see why? Dear Harry, remember I was teaching you to dance before you left. How did you make out? I will give you more lessons when you come back. Harry, I really do miss you. Do you need cigs or money? Your pal, Joyce. Hello, Harry. In the hush of the evening when shadows cross my room, I think of you being near me and holding me in your arms. And I mean big, strong arms. Oh, what's the use of writing all about it? It won't do me any good. Just make me more lonesome and blue. Love and kisses, Mary. Hello, Harry. I could hardly wait for you to call me today. Guess lovin' doesn't seem to agree with me, as I haven't been feeling good since we met. Oh, gee, honey, you made me feel lots better when I heard your voice. Even if you were with another girlfriend that night, I bet you can be a mean rascal. Just careless. Dearest Harry, do you really think I could make you happy? If we get married, I'll certainly do my best. Of course, you know I have to keep on with my job for the duration of the war. It's my duty to my country. I'm working on gliders. I got the ring. It's too beautiful for words. It's a perfect fit. What you said about me changing my mind, I don't know what you mean. I told you to send the ring if you cared to, then we would see when you came. If anything should happen that may change everything, then the ring can be returned. You don't know. Lots of things could happen. Harry, I really do love you. I'm so lucky just even to know someone like you. This war won't last forever. My oldest brother, Johnny, goes into the Army Tuesday. It makes me feel so terrible. I only wish I were doing more. Con mucho amor, Georgia.
Cousin Clifton is now in France flying. Eva says Clifton's mother worries a lot about him, and her other sons, Julius and Kenny, all are in the service. One day, Eva gets a letter from Clifton, who was in southern France. Dear Eva, I was flying in an observation plane when a German fighter slipped through and shot us down. Filled the gas tank full of holes, so we had to land. The pilot was killed and burned, so I was very fortunate to come out of it with only a flesh wound. Forgive me for not writing more often. We have jumped off again and are going rather fast through France. It has been much easier than anything in Italy, for the Germans seem disorganized, and the French are all out to get rid of them and doing a mighty thorough job of it. France is a very modern country, and in spite of the war, they managed to keep clean, well-dressed, and hold on to their property. They have suffered, and almost all their food and cattle have been taken. They line up to wave us by, planting a kiss on each cheek. The percentage of beautiful women runs higher than in the United States. Your cousin Clifton.
Can you imagine? Cousin Clifton shot down over France, survives, but his pilot is killed, and forgive me for not writing? Just picture Cousin Clifton marching through a small French village as women cheer him and his comrades. Cousin blushes as the mademoiselles kiss him, but ever gallant, he just winks and marches on. Harry, too, was the consummate gentleman.
Harry writes, Hello, honey. Well, darling, they're going to release me Monday of next week. I will go to Kansas as I want to see my brother Russell, who is getting ready to go overseas. I wish you could come there. I will write to you as soon as I get a place to stay in California. With all my love, Harry.
1944 would end with the Battle of the Bulge, that little incident on the Western Front, the Germans' last gasp. Uncle Herbie and Uncle James fought in General Patton's Third Army, and both uncles suffered frostbite and trauma, but they fought on. When will it end? When will our boys come home? When will life return to normal? Uncle Bill always said that his round-trip ticket was good, and he intended to keep it.
Dear folks, just a few lines today to let you know that I have arrived at a new address and that I am still alive and well. Eva, I must tell you that the biscuits and chicken that you sent to me were spoiled. I hope that by this time you have all the crops gathered and all the cotton picked. As always, Bill.
1945, a war-weary world. May 8th, victory in Europe, VE Day. September the 2nd, victory in Japan, VJ Day. And the world went wild.
Bill writes, Dear Sis, I want to be home. I don't want any gifts sent to me this year. If things keep going as they are, we may be on our way home by the 1st of November. There are rumors that we will be leaving this area by the middle of next month. I hope that it turns out true. You asked me how I celebrated VJ Day? Well, I got plenty drunk. Your brother Bill.
Uncle Bill drunk. Bless his heart. There were lots of tipsy folks on VJ Day. Aunt Evie always said we will know in good time. And in good time, I learned about the incident in the Mediterranean that Mrs. Leach spoke of in her letter, the first letter I found, those many years ago. One day in 2004, Cousin Adger, Uncle Bill and Aunt May's only child, called me. Kath, I have a letter for you. My father wrote it to my mother in September 1945. It will answer your questions. A few days later, I received a letter from Cousin Adger. Cousin writes, You will notice a noticeable change in his writing as the description of the event unfolds. Now I knew.
This is what Bill wrote. My dearest wife, I don't know how this letter is going to turn out, but I am going to try and give you a brief summary of what happened to my battalion. Now, don't expect too much, as it may be very dull. We had landed at Oran in Algeria, North Africa, and were waiting for transportation to India. On the 24th of November, 1943, our entire organization loaded on the British transport HMT Rona and pulled out into the harbor for the night and sailed for Bombay on the 25th, Thanksgiving Day. After dinner, a few of us went into the salon and started shooting dice. Just about a half hour had passed when the klaxon sounded. We stopped and picked up our life belts. I went down to my cabin and picked up my camera, field glasses, canteen, and pistol. I watched the fireworks from the stern for about 45 minutes. It was a beautiful sight while it lasted. There were 32 German planes that came over in groups of 8. They would circle our convoy out of range of our Ak-Ak barrage and turn loose their glider bombs. Our convoy had an escort destroyer that was equipped with radar that could knock out the radio of the bombs and cause them to drop harmless into the sea. There was one near miss on the boat that was behind us. The explosion almost lifted that little boat right out of the water. About 5 minutes later, I saw one of these bombs turn loose by the same bomber. An Air Corps captain hollered, "Glider bomb, look out!" About that time, it hit the ship dead center just above the waterline. It penetrated to the engine room and exploded, knocking a hole on the other side of the ship below the waterline. The engine room was completely destroyed. All power and means of communication were cut. The hole where the bomb entered the ship on the port side was large enough to drive an army truck through sideways.
Did you all ever hear of the Rona? On that fateful Thanksgiving of 1943, 1,981 American soldiers and airmen boarded the Rona, bound for India. Of that contingent were members of the 853rd Engineer Aviation Battalion, including Lieutenant William George Brown and Lieutenant Fred H. Leach. The missile age began on that November day. The Nazis were experimenting with a new weapon, the rocket-propelled, radio-controlled Hensel glide bomb, the air-to-surface missile. The first successful strike by such a weapon in combat. The experiment on the Rona convinced the Nazis that their new weapon could bring down Britain. So in January 1944, The V-1 buzz bombs rained over the skies of Britain.
Bill continues, the cries of anguish and pain are something I will never forget. Men were caught under timbers and could not get out. Men were burned beyond recognition. Fire started almost immediately and began to spread pretty fast. As many men as could make it were in the water in about 45 minutes. There was only one lifeboat that got into the water without capsizing. I saw my mess sergeant. He was covered in dough from head to foot, and he did not have a life belt. He was deathly afraid of the water and could not swim. I tried to give him my life belt, but he would not take it. I went hunting for him, but when I got back, he was gone. By this time, there were very few men left on the boat. I ran into two of our officers, and we three threw everything that would float over the side. It was almost 1,800 hours when we decided it was time for us to go over the side. On my way down the net, another sergeant was coming up. He did not have a life belt and could not swim. Again, I tried to give mine away, but still no go. He went on up to try to find one for himself. I wish now that I had knocked him out with something and carried him with me. I never saw him again. I hit the water and it was plenty cold, but I did not mind at all. I made one stroke and caught hold of a small raft. There were the other two officers. One that could not swim was on the raft and holding on for dear life. When we left the ship for the water, the ammunition in the hold was exploding and making a beautiful display of fireworks. The fire was so hot that the side of the ship was red in places. Finally, we drifted in close enough to a British destroyer to get picked up. The lower part of my body was so cramped that I had to pick my legs up with my hands to keep them from getting crushed between the ship and the raft. When I was on deck and on my feet, the sailors turned me loose, and I almost hit the deck face down before they caught me.
The Rona is the worst at-sea disaster in U.S. naval history. The British and American governments classified the Rona incident. Churchill and Roosevelt didn't want the Germans to learn their experiment had been so successful, and news of this tragedy would hurt morale on the home front. The first roll call of the 853rd was held a month after the attack. 496 names were called out. 496 did not respond. One was Lieutenant Fred H. Leach. Did Mrs. Leach ever learn the fate of her husband? I don't know. The Rona file was not declassified until 1974. In 2005, I joined the Rona Survivors Association as Uncle Bill's representative and have participated in 4 reunions. These dear folks and their families have become friends. In June, I attended our Rona reunion and saw dear friends again, but Al wasn't there. He died just 2 weeks before our reunion, but his daughters will carry on and make sure the story of the Rona is told to a new generation. Tell them when you go home, for their tomorrow, we gave our today.
Bill's letter continues. After about 4 hours of rest, we loaded on what is known as 40 or 8 cars, 40 men or 8 horses, on the Algerian Railroad and moved to Bazartan. We stayed there and drew new clothing and bedding. Then, after the 1st of January 1944, we were loaded on another British boat. We had lost better than 60% of our personnel and 10 officers.
Uncle Bill, alive and kicking, as he would say, made it safely to India. Among those of the 853rd who made it to India were 4 Connecticut Yankees. Joseph Flannery, Hartford. Mateo Leona, East Haven. Warren Nichols, Richfield. And Jack Bracken, Bridgeport.
Bill ends his letter to me. Honey, I love you so much and miss you so much that it is almost unbearable. I love you, sweet, with all my heart. Always, Bill.
The sons and daughters of President Roosevelt were coming home, forever changed. But he didn't live to see the homecoming. President Roosevelt died in Warm Springs, Georgia, April the 12th, 1945. The train carrying his body home to Hyde Park passed through the little town of Easley. Eva, Grandpa Brown, and hundreds of their neighbors lined Main Street as the train passed slowly by. Uncle Adger was not among them. He died April the 10th. They sang, "Going home, I'm just going home. Quiet like slip away, I am going home." Eva's old friend, Miss Annabelle, did see President Roosevelt's boys coming home. I remember Miss Annabelle, and she was Miss Annabelle to all. She was proud, intelligent, and looked you straight in the eye, even in the eye of a little girl. My dear Eva Lee, it's great and wonderful to see our boys return whole and sound. I could weep if it would do any good when I see so many armless, legless, and blind. Looks as if our country's gone strike crazy. President Roosevelt seems to have made some errors. Trouble is, people are so distrustful of each other. We need to settle down and be sensible Americans. Guess if it took 2 years to prepare for war, it'd take 10 years to get over it. Love, Annabelle. A war-weary world is at peace. Eva hasn't seen Harry for almost 3 years.
My dear Eva, I was thinking very seriously of coming to Easley and taking you back with me to California. Please let me know the answer to my $64 question. As ever yours, Harry C. Ladnier.
The $64 question. That was a lot of money for my father. In a letter to Eva Lee, he included a map of the United States, a map he cut from the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner. He cut it out of the newspaper, drew a line from Los Angeles, California to Greenville, South Carolina, the route of Southern Pacific Sunset Limited. He said simply, "This is the way I will come."
Harry writes, "My dear Eva, just received your nice letter. You can have any kind of wedding your little heart desires. All I want to do is make you happy because I know now, darling, ours is the real thing. We will spend our honeymoon at Santa Catalina Island next summer. How does that sound to you? And next summer we can take a trip back to Easley. That is, if you don't get homesick before then. As ever, Harry."
I have a photograph of my father and mother in front of the farmhouse. Daddy returned to that little town in South Carolina and the woman he just couldn't forget. The war is over. Grandma Armentine and Harry welcome home to Los Angeles Uncle Herbie, Uncle Arnold, Uncle Russell, and Uncle Don. Cousin Clifton is back in Colorado. Uncle Bill is back home in South Carolina, never to leave again. Uncle James came home to Aunt Bee and Baby Ann. Papa Brown has his family around him. All of my kinfolks came home, alive and kicking. I like to think that Eva Lee said to herself, "My family is back, now it is my time to leave." Recently, I went back to that little town in South Carolina and the old farmhouse. I was cleaning and noticed an old book thrown into a pile of other old books. I was drawn to that book. I turned the front page, in black ink, the signature, Eva Lee Brown Ladnier. The title, Journey Through Chaos, by Washington Post journalist Agnes Meyer, dedicated to her son, Captain Eugene Meyer, and her son-in-law, Lieutenant Philip Graham. Agnes traveled around the country chronicling the war's impact on those living through it. When I was a little girl, Mother told me she always wanted to be a journalist like sensitive Agnes, and travel around the world. Her travels were through the letters, and maybe Los Angeles would be that world she longed to see. Eva boards the Sunset Limited, destination Los Angeles, California. Eva marries Harry and gives birth to me. Aunt Evie always said, "Good things come to those who wait."
The end.
Thank Thank you so much for that wonderful reading. I'd like to introduce Eileen Hurst at this time. Eileen is the founder and director of the Veterans History Project at Central Connecticut State University. This program has been an official partner of the Library of Congress since 2005. Eileen received a BS in Education from Eastern Connecticut State University and a Master's in Education from Westfield State College.
Thank you, Rebecca. What great letters and what great reading gives you an idea of how valuable letters are in the past and even for our warriors today. At Central Connecticut State University, we're an archive partner with the Library of Congress in Washington. We're proud to archive the oral histories of any of Connecticut's veterans from any war. There's brochures in our newsletter in the back table you can pick up on your way out. We will go anywhere in the state of Connecticut to interview a veteran who served during wartime. It does not have to be in combat, but during wartime. We have almost 500 collections to date that we have preserved. And what we do, we go to the vet's home. It's a videotaped interview, and then we collect any photographs, letters, journals, diaries, military records. Everything is scanned and digitized, and it goes online. And then a copy of everything is sent to the Library of Congress, where it's preserved forever. So that hundreds of years from now, when we're all dead and gone, letters like Eva's and Harry's and Bill's will be preserved, and future generations will learn about history from the people who actually made that history. I think you get an idea from the letters that we heard today just how gold they are. Not only the obvious historic value, but you get the human side of war. And that's what we love. In the oral histories, we don't just get the facts and the dates of when our vets served. We find out what it was like to serve, what they felt like, the funny things they did, the sad things, all aspects of that war. Our collection, because of its access on the Internet, has been viewed by thousands of people all over the world. We just did a check on our Internet statistics, and in 1 year, something like 280-something thousand people had viewed it, and 80,000 of them were from other countries, which was pretty amazing. It's a rich, rich repository for scholars, historians, researchers, as well as the veterans and their families. Our collection and the collections down at the Library of Congress have been used for many other activities. For example, just this year, National Geographic contacted us, and they're producing a documentary on World War II. To bring that to life, they've actually, I think they're using about 20 of our veterans in clips from their actual interviews, and that will air in the spring. If you know of that or love of that, or anybody in your family or your community, please take a brochure and give it to them. We'd be delighted to add their oral history to our collection. In addition to the historic value, it's a legacy for families. Most vets that we interview, and this is hard to believe because even World War II vets, have not talked about their military experience to their families. Their families know nothing. We've had so many families come up to us later and thanked us because we give the family a copy of the interview saying, I never knew what my husband did in the war. I never knew what my father did in the war. And this is the first time that they're actually hearing about it. And the children are so happy to have this part of their parent that they can pass on. We've actually had some vets' families play their interview after their funeral. In addition to collecting these oral histories and this valuable firsthand information, we work with schools across the state. We have a speakers bureau. Our vets are willing to go into schools, civic organizations, and talk to children and teachers. In fact, tomorrow we have 40 vets from World War II to the present conflict going into Rocky Hill High School to meet with their students. We had 4 World War II vets, you guys that are old enough to remember World War II or to know about it, that great book, Unbroken. East Catholic had that assigned to all their students and faculty last summer as their one book to read. They came back in the September, and they had a huge forum out for their opening day. So they had 4 of our World War II vets there. One was a B-24 pilot, which is what Lou Zamperini went down in. And the other 3 had served in locations where Lou Zamperini had been. So for those students to hear firsthand and relate to Lou Zamperini's experience was just phenomenal. We've had a lot of nice things, unexpected happenings as a result of our collection that we never, ever expected. Because of the Internet access, we have had tons of reunions. We had a World War II gunner find his pilot. It was B-24, hadn't seen each other in 64 years. They both had been trying to find each other, and the gunner's children actually found the pilot on the Internet. And when they Googled his name and they got to our website, and there was their crew photo with their dad. And I'm going, Dad, you're not going to believe this, but here's you back in the war. So they called. The father and the son flew to Connecticut and stayed for 5 days. And they had a great reunion. It was like they never left. We've had 2 daughters find their fathers that they never knew. Lots of nice things like that have happened as a result. I know we're out of time, but I'll stay later if anyone's interested or anyone has any personal interest for one of their loved ones to be interviewed, and I'll stay to answer questions. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Eileen. I think today's play really shows the importance of saving those valuable primary documents in our families. I know that we're out of time, so if people have to leave to go back to work, please feel free to do so. I'd invite our authors to come up front again if anyone has any questions for them. Any questions? Quiet group today. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's presentation, and I'd invite you to join us tomorrow evening. We're having a special program with the Secretary of the State and the Civic Health Advisory group that begins at 6 o'clock tomorrow evening, and it's called Inspiring Change. Leadership Begins with You. So thank you for attending, and we'll see you soon.
That should be interesting. It should be.